All right, hello everyone. Let us get started. Let me make sure my settings here are correct for this because I'm going to be sharing my screen, which will be a lot of fun. Hopefully, if I can get it to work, but I think I figured it out. So, yes. All right. So, welcome to the Hot Takes discussion where we talk about Star Wars and we rank everything. And it is going to offend a lot of people. I already know that. I have faith in you. Well, all right. Let's be honest here. You shouldn't, because most people tend to get very irked with my opinions, and I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan since I was 7 or 8, probably, maybe even before that. I don't even remember. I remember I saw A New Hope on TV, and I got absolutely hooked, and I've been kind of hooked ever since until some of the more recent stuff, which we'll get into. But yeah, this is going to be a little tricky because I only have one monitor, so I have to go back and forth between screens. So it might take me a sec to notice some comments and stuff when they pop up. But so we got our 5 tiers here that we're going to be ranking. We got fucking brilliant, great, average at best, bad, and fucking terrible. Why does anyone like this? Now, I have on here only stuff I've seen in the Star Wars universe. So I have all of the movies. I have all of the television shows and a few odds and ends here. So let's get something out of the way real quick. We got the first 3 on here on the list. The first thing is the Clone Wars movie, the animated movie. Now, I heard throughout my entire life that the Clone Wars movie was terrible, and the Clone Wars TV show was awesome. I've heard that Rebels was awesome too. A lot of people really like the animated stuff, with the exception of the film. And I agree with part of them. I think the film is absolutely terrible. It's just not good. It's really childish and cheesy, and its reputation is earned as being terrible. Now we get to the part that might bother some people, and that's the Clone Wars TV show. A lot of people really like the show. I watched it, I think it was right after The Mandalorian. And the reason I watched it was twofold, actually. I had a big Lego set I was doing at the time, which took a lot of hours, and I just wanted something on in the background. And I chose the television show, The Clone Wars, because I knew that Disney was making a lot of new content. And I said, well, I might as well watch this because I knew that they had made, I think they were the ones that made the last season. I might be wrong on that, but I think Disney did. So I wanted to watch it and make sure I had any content that was important for any of the TV shows. And I did watch it, and I thought it was terrible. And I honestly don't understand why so many people like this. It's just such a boring, childish show. I was flabbergasted. I watched I think it was 7 seasons, and I don't understand why people like it. There was like 2 good episodes, and the rest were just either filler or really boring and childish. And then Rebels, I was really excited to get to Rebels because it was an animated show in the New Hope era. I think maybe it might have been like right before then. And I was kind of excited for that. And at first, aesthetically, I was really into the show because it was just kind of more of something we haven't really seen a ton of. But man, it's rated TVY7 for a reason, and it shows. And so by that account, I also strongly dislike that show as well. So those are the animated shows and movie. Let's move on to one more kind of off the beaten path film, and that's the Ewoks films. There's two of them, I believe. And while I only have a memory of one of them, I know I've seen both of them, and I don't remember which one I've seen a lot of and which one I've only seen once. But these are not as bad as people say they are. I'll put them in bad. I liked them as a kid. I thought they were interesting. But, to each their own, I guess. I didn't think they were as bad as a lot of people say. I actually kind of thought it was interesting. And it's not really a Star Wars movie, I guess. So now we move on to all the fun live action stuff. So we're going to rank these based on oh God, I got something in my throat. We're going to rank these based on the order they came out for the films, anyway, of the core 9. We're going to rank these based on what I feel about them now, as opposed to when I first saw them. I did a rewatch of the first 6 recently, probably right around when the 9th movie dropped, I think it was. I'm not quite the last 3 in the trilogy. That opinion is going to be kind of based on what I saw in theaters because I haven't really rewatched them. So let's get into it. A New Hope. Like I said, I saw this when I was a kid. Really loved it. Became instantly addicted to it, and loved it at the time. I used to watch the core 3 movies over and over again. But as time has gone on, and even as a kid, A New Hope was always my least favorite. I thought it was very boring. The lightsaber fight was super underwhelming. The story is very tropey, and even as a kid, I recognized that. And so for me, and I know this is like a huge, not great thing, A New Hope is actually bad. So that's my opinion. Uh-oh. Hail, John, let's burn some buttholes with hot takes. Yeah, I have a feeling I just greatly upset you. But I don't know. A New Hope for me was bad. It was good when I first saw it, but I'm grading them on how I feel now. And A New Hope, it just didn't age well. And the story is very cliche and just not for me. Just a typical hero journey movie, and I just get sick of that. So we'll move on to Empire Strikes Back. And actually, upon rewatching it recently, I thought I get why people like it as much as they do. It's a great movie. I'm not disputing that. I do think it's overrated, but it's still a good film. It's one of the better Star Wars films, I think. I don't think that's arguable. For me, Empire Strikes Back is probably great. And I just don't know that it's brilliant. But yeah, after seeing episode 7, it's kind of how A New Hope should have been, at least visually. Well, I guess that's the problem of the times there, right? 77 and their visuals were not up to par. But yeah, I mean, episode 7 was really just kind of a rehash. And I guess visually it improved, but the story was very similar. So this might be a hot take as well, but Return of the Jedi as a kid was always my favorite of the trilogy. And I think it's because as a younger kid, A New Hope I found boring and cliche. Empire Strikes Back, I was actually a little scared of. It was like the whole horror part of the ending of the movie. So there's really two parts of the movie that didn't click with me as a kid. The first was the Yoda training scene with Luke on Dagobah, because Yoda was kind of weird in that movie. He was kind of creepy. And then you had that whole montage of Luke going into the cave and seeing himself in Vader's helmet, and that part was always creepy. And then at the end of the film, when Luke's on Cloud City, right, looking for Vader, and Vader is hiding, and then like leaps out and starts attacking him, and then the whole hand cutting off thing. That whole part of the movie, that like always scared me. I guess I wasn't scared, but like it was enough that it was not my favorite. But I loved all of Hoth, and the lightsaber battle was a lot better. Although, like I said, it had kind of a horror theme to it, and that as a kid turned me off a tiny bit. Return of the Jedi, Ewoks, aside from the Ewoks, I thought as a kid was a much, I don't want to say much better film, but I rewatched a lot because I really liked the Bounty Hunters. I really liked Boba Fett, really liked Jabba the Hutt and the whole palace, all of that cool stuff. The fight in the end, I loved how the Return of the Jedi really started that huge montage of like multiple battles going on, right? So you have like Luke versus the Emperor. You have the ground fight on Endor with the Ewoks and Han and Leia. And then you have the space battle with Lando. And you can really see that inspiration really like take off in the prequel series, which I love that whole like multiple battle thing. And so for me, Return of the Jedi is probably also a great movie. And I'm not ranking them in these movies and stuff in their separate tiers, because I think that might be too hard for me to do. Um, as an adult looking back, I think Empire Strikes Back is probably the better movie. But man, for most of my life, I really just enjoyed Return of the Jedi so much. Again, kind of not the Ewoks never bothered me like a lot of people, but I can see why they did. Return of the Jedi. I love the whole interaction between Luke, the Emperor, and Vader at the climax. Just amazing to me still. Yeah, the Emperor. So I have ranked. Well, I haven't ranked, but I've talked about my favorite villains before on a podcast I do. It's called the Rough Characters Podcast. I have a link to it in my Twitter, but it's a podcast where we kind of talk about random shit when it comes to science, sci-fi, and fantasy. And one time we did our favorite villains, and even before we thought about this for the podcast, I've always said the Emperor Palpatine is my favorite villain of all time, and people usually cite Darth Vader as like their favorite villain from Star Wars, and to me, that's crazy because yeah, Vader's bad, but nowhere near as like clever and smart and cool as the Emperor, in my opinion. The Emperor really just manipulates Vader into being a villain. So really, the Emperor, in my opinion, is Vader. He's the Emperor too. So it's like crazy how cool and smart he is. I don't know. That's how I feel about the Emperor. He's just my favorite villain. He has such a good presence. The actor Ian McDiarmid. I can never say his last name, but he's a fantastic actor. And every time he plays Palpatine, he shines. So speaking of Palpatine, Phantom Menace introduces him as a senator, and a lot of people fucking hate this movie. I think a lot of people would put it in fucking terrible. Why does anyone like this? And they're right to do so if that's how they feel. For me, I absolutely loved this movie as a kid when I went to the theater. Now, I said earlier that I rewatched the prequels and the original trilogy. Right, I think it was right before number 9 came out. I can't remember exactly, but I've always maintained that The Phantom Menace was a good film. I really liked it, except for Jar Jar Binks. And this might be because I grew up watching it in the theater. It was the first Star Wars movie I saw in theater. But upon a rewatch, man, that movie went down in my rankings by quite a bit. It was actually kind of shocking. As a kid, I didn't really mind a lot of what happened in it, like the politics scenes and Tatooine and the pod race. As a kid, it was like, okay, let's get through this. I want to get to the cool battles. As an adult, I would have guessed that I would have appreciated these scenes more, especially like the politics. But really, as an adult, I was like, my God, I think I'm more bored than when I was a kid. Let's move it along. So I was pretty surprised by that when I rewatched it. So for me, The Phantom Menace is probably, I don't know, average at best, maybe. I mean, I think it's a good movie. I love the ending of it. I really do. But there are a lot of issues with the movie, and I think another issue is Queen Amidala is apparently supposed to be 14. Does not look like it. By that account, I think Anakin's supposed to be 9, and I always thought he seemed younger than that. So I think that age gap made it seem a little bit more awkward there. Now, often cited as, well, I don't know how often it is, but I've seen it often cited as the worst of the trilogy, and that's Attack of the Clones. I'm actually really surprised upon rewatching it how many people hated this movie. I thought the movie it had some really cringy dialogue. I won't argue that. Definitely had a lot of weird things. Sand, of course, is the meme for sure, and I don't dispute that. A lot of people find the romance story to be not interesting, and I actually liked it as a kid, and on rewatching it as an adult, I actually still liked it. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Is it great? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. I would rank Attack of the Clones higher than The Phantom Menace. Would I rank it higher than Return of the Jedi? Yeah, I think so. So I think actually Attack of the Clones for me is a great movie, which is kind of surprising me right now. But yeah, I don't know. I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't. Upon rewatching The Phantom Menace, I like it less than some of the other core trilogy, but as a whole, I'm definitely higher on the prequel trilogy compared to the original trilogy, which I know is a huge hot take. So let's really bother some people now. Let's talk about Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is a funny movie to me because I saw Revenge of the Sith when I was I forgot when it came out, but I think I was 17 maybe. So I was old enough to know more than when I saw Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones. And I remember being so excited for this movie. And I went to the theater with my brother, and we're sitting there, and the movie starts. And I was so excited for it. And then it I don't know what happened. It's so the first 30 minutes of that movie are the most empty, emotionless, cheesy, boring minutes of a movie I've seen in forever. I almost walked out of the theater, and if I had driven myself to the theater, I might have. But if I recall correctly, I think it was dropped off. So it's not like walking out would have done anything. There was a huge space battle with no music and no tension and a lot of stupid humor and quips. And I was like, this is stupid. And then you had the whole part where it's Obi-Wan, Anakin, and I think R2-D2 are going through the ship trying to rescue Palpatine from Count Dooku. And that whole thing, still I did not like, and I didn't think the movie actually got interesting until Anakin has Dooku between the two lightsabers, and he cuts his head off, and then right there I was like, oh shit, all right, and then from then on I thought the movie was really good, and then the last hour of the movie, this is a huge hot take, I know, and I apologize to anyone who is offended by it, but it's my favorite movie of all time, despite the issues. I think, especially of Star Wars. I think there's one or two movies that aren't Star Wars that I'd probably rank higher than this movie, but the last hour is just fucking brilliant. You have Order 66. You have the conversion of Anakin to the dark side completely. You have him going on his murderous rampage. You have the end battle with Obi-Wan and Anakin, which is the best lightsaber fight ever still, which is shocking because there's been so many more movies and shows and we still haven't gotten another good one. And well, that's not true. We got one good one, which I'll talk about later. And then my favorite scene in, I think, a movie ever is the fight between Palpatine and Yoda. And I don't like their fight more, but there's this part where they walk into like the Senate and they start fighting, and they get onto one of those platforms, and it like raises and the camera zooms out, and as it's raising they're fighting on it. And even as like my young kid in the theater self watching this, I got so many like chills and just, oh my god, because that part of the battle represented so much. You had good versus evil. You had Jedi versus Sith. You had it was like what, freedom versus, or democracy versus like a dictatorship. There was just so many layers to that battle, and I thought that was awesome. So yeah, episode 3 to me is fucking brilliant. I know that is a huge hot take. So then we move on to the new trilogy, Disney buys Star Wars. And after Disney buys Star Wars, it's everything on the list right here that we're going to be rating. So we start with The Force Awakens. Force Awakens, we talked about it a little bit earlier. It was just a complete retread of A New Hope. And it looked really cool, like visually. But man, that movie was so empty of anything original. I think the only part that was worth watching was Han Solo dying. And even that kind of didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But, that's okay. So for me, The Force Awakens is bad. It was just rehashing something we'd already seen. And I don't understand why we needed to do that. I get they were trying to play it safe, but to me it was safe and stupid. We don't need to see A New Hope again. We could just watch A New Hope. So that's my opinion. Now, The Last Jedi. This is a very divisive film. Some people love it. Some people hate it. For me, I fucking hate this movie. I think that Rian Johnson ruined the franchise with it and the story. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, bar the next movie, I think. And I can't even believe that he was allowed to do some of the stuff in this that he did. And it just, God, I don't understand. It was so stupid. The lights, what's it called? The light speed through another ship to blow it up made no sense at all. Basically everything in this movie just made no sense, and I don't understand. I think that's the movie too, when Leia gets blown out of the ship into space, which she would die from. And at the moment that happened, I was like, oh my god, they're killing her. Wow. how crazy, this is so cool that, you know, something major just happened, because I was hating the movie until that moment. And yeah, so they just had her open her eyes and then use the force to float back into a ship. What? It was dumb. So yeah, that movie for me is fucking terrible. But we move on to the sequel, which The Rise of Skywalker. Also fucking terrible for the same reasons as The Last Jedi. There's a lot of shit in it that made no sense. There's no established lore that you can reach for items with the Force across the galaxy. And why would I want that to be true? That's just stupid. The whole love story between Kylo and Rey made no sense. The whole Palpatine was never dead made no sense. Oh, and the wasted Snoke potential in the last movie too just made no sense. Everything about these movies made no sense. It was clear that they just fucked everything up. But what can you do? I don't know. And I firmly believe that those two movies are the worst movies I've ever seen of all time. I genuinely believe that. I cannot imagine being handed $1 billion franchise and then not even thinking about the fans when you make the movie, and not even ignore the fans. Okay, the fans don't even matter. They just didn't have a plan in place. They didn't outline a whole trilogy. It was maddening. Who does that? I don't get it. So to me, those are the worst two pieces of Star Wars content we've ever gotten. And I imagine they are going to remain that way forever. All right, so Rogue One. Rogue One is, in my opinion, the best movie Disney has made, and it is fucking brilliant. I loved the dark tones to that movie. I loved all the action, all the characters. It was a dark movie. It was the most adult feeling Star Wars movie, and I want more of that. I would love to have more, even more mature movies than that. But what can you do? Ow! I just hit my hand on the table. Great. And then here's another hot take. Solo. People fucking hated this movie. Did they though? Because it was the movie that came out after The Last Jedi. For me, I think it was more of a retaliation because The Last Jedi was so bad. Because I saw Solo and I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The only thing I didn't like about Solo was I really didn't like Donald Glover as Lando. He didn't land. And I thought the story with Lando was a bit weird. But Solo, the movie, had some really interesting new characters. It took me a while to buy the main character as Han Solo, but by the end of the movie, I was sold. And what was her name? Kira, I think her name was. Kira, the girl that played Daenerys from Game of Thrones, plays her. I think it's Kira. She had a very interesting story in this movie. And there's a huge, cool reveal about Darth Maul in the end of it. It wasn't actually dead. And I really wanted to see how that movie played out. So for me, Solo is great. And I really wanted a sequel to it because there was a planned sequel as far as I know. And I really liked that movie. So I think that's all the movies. And now we're going to move on to the 4 TV shows. And we will start with The Mandalorian. So a lot of people think The Mandalorian is amazing, and I agree with them. I think The Mandalorian is amazing, but I do have some complaints. Do my complaints affect my rating of the show? No. I don't think they do. But if I was running the show, I would do a few things differently. For example, I wouldn't have filmed the first. Well, I guess it's more of a writing issue, not a filming issue. But the first season, for the first 3/4 of it, it really felt like an anthology, and I didn't like that. I really like a story to go through each episode. Anthologies aren't really my type of thing. Black Mirror is probably the only one that I really like. But once the storyline picked up, once we got introduced to some more characters, I really started to like that first season. And then season 2 just was amazing. And season 3 is about to come out, and I'm really excited for it. But man, I just don't understand why they fired Gina Carano. Like, just because she had a bad take on Twitter, it's just crazy to me. I think Gina Carano is an idiot. I think that she has some stupid takes. But being an idiot and having stupid takes, in my opinion, is not enough to fire them. And it really, really sucks, because I think I just think the show is going to suffer because of it. But, all those things aside, I still think The Mandalorian is fucking brilliant. Now we get into the other shows. The Book of Boba Fett. If you were going to do a class in college about how to butcher a character 101, they would show you this show, because it takes Boba Fett and completely butchers him in such a weird way. I don't understand it. They made him like a little bitch, and normally I don't mind, I don't care if characters change and stuff, but he was never a badass. He comes into the palace, he takes it over, and you're like, yes, Boba Fett is going to be awesome. But he never is, and he just makes a lot of stupid decisions, and I don't get it. And I think the show tried to rationalize it by showing his past with the Tusken Raiders, which, again, in my opinion, that whole story did not work and was boring. And I just don't understand why they did that. I don't get that. It's really annoying, because there was so much potential there. I was so excited for the Book of Boba Fett. I thought it was going to be my favorite show ever, and it ended up being a trailer for The Mandalorian season 3, essentially, and a butchering of a beloved character, which I don't understand. And then aside from those things, let's pretend those things don't exist. All of the cool stuff in the Book of Boba Fett, they didn't even focus on. They had so many cool introduced characters in the first episode. They had the two I forgot their names, but the two Hutts, they were super interesting. They had the Wookiee, he was super interesting, and then they kind of don't use any of those characters that much, and that annoyed me. But oh well. So for me, the Book of Boba Fett, and I rewatched it with someone who hadn't seen the show, and upon a binge, I watched it originally as it dropped, and that was really frustrating. On a binge, it's not as bad, but it's still not great. So for me, it's probably average at best. I didn't hate it all the way. There were a lot of things I liked about the show. There's even some things I loved about it. There was also some serious problems that probably should drag it down a little bit lower in the rankings, but I think that there's some solid enough ideas for me that if they do a season 2, I'll still be excited for it. So I think they got the message on Boba Fett being ruined. So I think they'll fix him. We'll see. So now we move on to the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. This show, I was always confused as to why they were making it. When they announced it, I was like, but why do we need that? Why do we need to see Obi-Wan living on Tatooine guarding Luke? There's no story there that's going to be interesting. And I was mostly right. The show was cool. The Inquisitors were stupid. The whole Reva storyline was really dumb. You could tell from the very beginning of the show that she was going to turn good, and it just didn't make sense. I hated that, and I didn't like her character. I didn't like any of the Inquisitors, really. The Grand Inquisitor was okay, but even then, he wasn't really that menacing for a Grand Inquisitor. And I loved Leia, and I love the whole story with Obi-Wan and Leia, except for the fact that it literally doesn't make sense when you compare it to the original trilogy. And they tried to explain that away at the end by him saying, "You can't tell anyone that this happened." And I'm just like, yeah, because a 9-year-old is going to care or listen about that. I don't know. I really didn't like that. And the whole series is kind of a massive plot hole because of that. And then also the last episode when you have Obi-Wan fighting Vader, which is an amazing lightsaber fight. It's the best lightsaber fight aside from episode 3's, I think. You have him fight Vader at the same time that Reva is arriving on Tatooine to go after Luke. And somehow Luke is able to, or Luke, somehow Obi-Wan is able to defeat Darth Vader, get into a ship, fly all the way back to Tatooine, get off a ship, run across the desert, find what's happening, all before Reva can locate a boy that ran. A boy that ran. It's 2 times in that show a kid evades adults in the most ridiculous way possible, and that's one of them. And then the other one is Leia when she's fleeing the guys in the woods. It's ridiculous. And even actually, I guess there's a third because Leia runs from Obi-Wan at some point, and it again is ridiculous that he can't catch up to her. So I'd say Obi-Wan for me is it bad or fucking terrible? I'll say bad because I think there was still some interesting things in that show, but I don't think it's fucking terrible. It's close though. All right, so Andor. Of all the shows that were announced during the live event where Kathleen Kennedy announced all these shows, I was most excited for Andor, and everyone was like, that show's going to suck. Why would anyone want that show? And because Rogue One was so adult and gritty and mature, I was so excited for that. And then I saw Andor. And it's kind of funny because I'm watching it as it's coming out, and I'm seeing on Twitter, I'm seeing online, I'm seeing on YouTube, I'm seeing everyone rave about this show and how cool it is. And the whole time I'm like, this is the most boring show I've ever seen. I fucking hate this show. Was it adult? Yeah, and I like that. Was it gritty? Yes, and I love that too. Was it Star Wars? Absolutely not. There was like one robot, there was like one alien, and the rest was a bunch of humans, and it was mostly business. It was so boring. You had Andor, who's kind of trapped in this rebellion type movement, and his storyline is not as prevalent or important or interesting as you would think. And then you had the guy that kind of roped him into it, who's like starting the rebellion, I guess, with Mon Mothma, and he runs an antique store, and his scenes are maybe the best ones because it's kind of interesting seeing him try to be clever at pretending to be a store owner, I guess, while also giving vital information. Then you have the Mon Mothma scenes, which there was only a couple, but those were really good. I wanted to see a lot more of that side of things. I loved seeing Coruscant, and I liked seeing her with her family. I liked seeing her with the Senate. It was all interesting in one way or another. And then it really seemed like the show focused on the most boring characters. You had the guy that was part of the security bureau, I think, and he was really boring and weird and kind of creepy and pointless. And then you had the girl who was at like the top and investigating the different sectors, and her story was like super boring. I don't know why. I'm sure that there is a reason. There's, season 2, and then the fact that they didn't have K2SO in this show really bothered me. Like, they had the robot model, but like, I think he's a big part of why Rogue One was so good. So I don't really understand why they like didn't have him. They could have put him in there. They should have. So for me, Andor is actually fucking terrible. Why does anyone like this? Because, and I think it might sound like I was a bit warmer on it than people probably, compared to the rating. Like, I praised the Mon Mothma scenes and the like shop owner scenes, but overall, even those scenes together, like, nothing interesting really comes of it. It's just talking, and theorizing, and not really any action. And I don't need a ton of action in a show, but there should have been a lot more action in this show. And there should have been a lot less boring talking. What is a praise I can give for the show is that they said shit in a Star Wars show. That was amazing. I heard the guy say shit, and I was like, oh my God, yes. We're starting to edge our way towards that, like, Netflix R-rated Marvel show that I want for Star Wars, and we still haven't gotten that. And, maybe one day we'll get there. I don't know. So these were my thoughts on the Star Wars property. I know that it's a very hot take. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with almost everything I did in this, and that's okay. I think that we like different things, and that's okay. But I really hated a lot of the movies that people like, and I really like a lot of the stuff that people hated. So, if you agree or disagree, that's cool. I think that everything is different, but I wouldn't bet on it, not on Disney. Yeah, the thing about Disney is that they have this weird habit of doubling down on things that aren't working. We've seen it with Marvel and now Star Wars, and I don't get it because they keep bleeding like money, and they're like, "That's fine, we'll just do it again." And it's like, but it's not working, so I don't get it. It's weird, The fans hate, well, most of the established Star Wars fans really hated the new trilogy. And the rumor is, and I can't confirm this, but I heard the rumor is that the next movie is supposed to be regarding the sequel trilogy. What are they thinking? I don't get it. It's stupid. It's insane that the next movie would have anything to do with the sequel trilogy. But what can we do? Just voice our displeasure, I guess. I don't know. Between the sequel trilogy and then a lot of the recent shows, I'm like, and I hate to say this because I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan, but like, I'm so close to just dipping out. I'm just not like caring about it anymore. And that sucks to say, but it's just the management has been so bad. And they just keep making these ridiculous decisions. And I don't get it. So I'm excited for The Mandalorian season 3, except for the fact that the whole Gina Carano thing. But, what can we do? What we can do is ignore it and let it either on the vine. It worked with Andor. So, yeah, I watched all of Andor, and I just don't understand the hype. I hated that show. It was an okay political show, I guess, but it didn't feel like Star Wars, I didn't think. And I was I was most excited for Andor out of all the Star Wars shows that were announced, and wow, it was just not good. It was so boring, and I don't understand. It was like they were trying to make. I don't know. I haven't seen Mad Men, so I guess I can't really make the comparison. But it was almost like Mad Men and Star Wars. Gina's firing was one of the last straws for me. Yeah, I mean, me too. And I politically, I don't even agree with her. I think she personally, politically, I think Gina Carano is a moron. I think she's stupid, and I disagree with a lot of what she says. But I think she should be able to say it on Twitter and not be in trouble for it. I don't understand that. And the crazy part is that who was it? I think it was Pedro Pascal made the same comparison with I think it was what he did it with Republicans when Trump was in office, and then she made the same comparison with I think what was it, Biden? I really don't remember. It's too many things have happened, but it was during the virus, of course, and how the country was being run. And did I agree more with Pedro than Gina? Yes, personally, but that's just my political beliefs, I guess. But not to go like super political. But I just think that everyone should be able to voice like their opinion on politics and not be in trouble. It doesn't matter that I didn't agree with Gina Carano. That was her personal platform. I think she should be able to talk about, politics should be separate, in my opinion, because that's like the things that run the country. You have to have your opinions. Your opinions are going to be very vitriolic. They're going to be very strong. I just don't like the idea that people are getting fired for having an opinion that one side doesn't like. And again, I thought she was stupid in almost everything she said. And I just think she's an idiot when it comes to like a lot of stuff. But I'm also on the side of it's allowed to be an idiot. You're allowed to be wrong on things. Or, some people were saying a lot of very controversial things in the beginning of the virus that turned out to be true as well. So, and they got in a lot of trouble for it. And I just think that we need to not be so quick to fire people. Look what happened with like Johnny Depp. He got fired from Pirates of the Caribbean because of allegations that were false. And there was no apology at all. It was like, oh, that sucks. Pedro called all Trump supporters Nazi. Yeah, I think that's what I remember hearing. And I think Gina Carano was something around like Nazis as well, but it was just like the opposite way. Gina posted a meme that stated Germany's success in rounding up Jewish people was assisted by encouraging citizens to turn on each other, and that we should learn from that historical precedent. Yeah, and again, right or wrong, I don't care. I just, if you want to fire someone for being wrong, so many more people should be fired, right? It's just mind numbing to me that like, oh, this time we didn't like this opinion, so you're fired. But then so many other opinions are tolerated, and I just don't like that. I mean, yeah, every company has the right to fire or hire whoever they want. I just, if it was up to Disney themselves, I don't think she would have been fired. I think it was solely a reaction to the backlash, and I from a business sense, I understand that. I wish they had a bit more backbone and just said, listen, we don't care about what she posts on her personal Twitter. If you like it, follow her. If you don't. That's what I would say if it was up to me. However, in the society that we live in, I can see why they fired her. The backlashes and the, calls for something done are getting to a point that is ridiculous to me, and I don't like it. But I'm not in charge, unfortunately. I really am a strong advocate of like you should be able to have your opinions on basically whatever you want for the most part, even harmful opinions. I just think that society progressed because of people with crazy opinions, and where we're at now because there were people who, in society, were continued the worst people ever. Back in the day, when the Catholic Church ran everything, science was considered to be like terrorism, right? It was horrible. But these are the people that really progressed a lot of stuff. And if you take out an opinion or a side of things that you don't like just because at that time it's not fitting with what you personally believe, I think that you're shutting out the possibility of growing and the possibility of society progressing. And that's just what I think. And I think that the strong, horrible, racist, whatever ist opinions that are out there, uh, while I don't necessarily like them, I think that they should be out there. I don't think you should just shut everyone out, because even the assholes that have these terrible opinions, you learn from those, right? When you're growing up and you see someone say something just terrible, just the worst thing you've ever heard in your entire life about a group of people, that's wrong, and that shapes you as a person. When you eliminate these strong points of view, you get a much more sterilized upbringing, and not even as a kid, but just as a person. And we're seeing that nowadays. Just like, if you don't fall in my line of thinking, you shouldn't be able to have a job. You shouldn't be able to be around me. I don't like that. I don't like it from either side of the political fence. I just don't like it. If you don't agree with whoever, then don't talk with them. Don't interact with them. If you don't want to buy something by someone who is whatever, don't. I have no problem with that. But I really hate this whole narrative that, like, because I don't want to, you all don't, you all shouldn't either. And that just irritates me. And I guess I went on kind of a rant at the end there, but I just get sick of that. I just don't like that behavior, And I don't know. It just upsets me because I remember when I was younger and it was like, oh, that person's an idiot. I hate them. Then that was it. You just talked to your friends about how much you didn't like that person. They agreed or they disagreed, and then you moved on. You didn't start these weird campaigns to, like, it's distracting everyone from everything. I think, every day there's a new controversy on, like, Twitter, and it's all just fluff. There's who cares? They said something bad. If you look at anyone's life, everyone's going to say something incredibly harmful at one point or another in their life. And I just don't think that one thing should be the end of your life. It's just weird to me that you can say something 20 years ago and that can, like, ruin the next 20 years of your life. And that is crazy to me because people just grow, they adapt, they change as you age, as you learn things, as you establish new points of view. And I don't know. I think that we're getting too honed in on different language. Where you say something as a joke now, and even intent doesn't matter anymore. And I don't know. I just find that strange because while a joke could be a stupid joke, it could be offensive and ill-placed and dumb, the intent in the joke was still not to be offensive. It was just a joke. And, everyone has different senses of humor, but I just don't understand why, if it's said in jest, that it's harmful. I don't know. But I guess that's about all I have to rant on the matter. I just like people being able to talk about whatever they want, and without fear of repercussions. There's a lot of, like, I don't know, safety nets people are hiding behind now. Like, you know, if I retweet someone on Twitter, I don't endorse them, and it's like, what? Who said you did? Like, it's just weird. I don't know. I don't know. I just wish that. Oh, my camera is fuzzy now, but here's my hot take: John Carter is a better Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi. I'm trying to get this to fix the focus, but I can't seem to. Oh well. So I've never seen John Carter, so I can't actually give an opinion on that. I barely remember the trailer for it. Why is this doing that? I should have just left it how it was, I guess. To be fair, there's a lot of like better Star Wars stuff now that isn't Star Wars. Guardians of the Galaxy is a better Star Wars movie than Star Wars is now. How sad is that? I'm trying to find. I have some sort of setting somewhere, but does not appear to be the case. What if I It's happened on my last stream too, where the camera just decided to shit the bed. I don't know why. Jokes are harmful, John. Be better. Yeah, see, I know. I don't like that. I just don't think that's the case. I think even, I really didn't want to launch into this, but it's an hour in, and if anyone actually watches this whole stream, then, good on them. But my thoughts on the jokes are harmful thing is there are certain groups that get super offended when you make jokes about them. And yet at the same time, they preach, or they want, I shouldn't say preach, that's kind of the wrong word. They want to be accepted. They want to be normal. But when you're normal, people make jokes about you. I just don't understand that. Yeah, the movie is good, but it was sabotaged by very bad marketing on Disney's part. It's a hell of a rabbit hole to go down. Yeah, I have not seen that. I wish there's got to be the camera. I don't understand. Ooh, I think that fixed it. Okay, cool. I learned something new today. I'm not a camera guy. I'm not good with the figuring out the focusing and the technology and all of that. But looks like I got it right. Cool. I'm happy that I figured out how to fix that quick because that was an issue on my last stream. Kind of surprised that we didn't have more people pop in. Usually we have more people, but this is my first time streaming on Sunday, so perhaps that was my mistake. I don't really know. But anyway, I'm not sure if there's anything else I have to talk about at the moment, so I guess we'll end it here. Thanks for coming by, the two of you that did. We'll see if people watch the replay and if anyone agrees or disagrees with any of the shit that I've said. I'm sure someone will. But anyway, have a good one, and thanks for stopping by.